for both those in rural Zambia and in urban Zambia. I may not dwell too much on the disqualification, because it is something that, what has helped me in my life is that I am a strong follower of God. I read the Bible, and there are certain things that I believe that if God wants something to happen, He will make it to happen. If God says, it's not my time, my son, He knows what to do. So whoever was involved, how the whole thing was used, I took it as all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to His purpose. I don't have any hard feelings. And somebody was telling me that, Mr. President, when you become president, deal with the ECZ chairperson. I said, no, not for CC. I have refused politics of vengeance. Some of you may have observed that I think among most of our political leaders, especially in the opposition, you have never seen me in any meeting of any alliance. Not one day. I've never been a member of any alliance. And some people were asking that, Mr. Chanda, why do you work alone? I said, I don't work alone. It's like you're asking a single lady who has never been proposed and saying, why are you single? I'm single because I'm not proposed. So, as a political party, I've never been approached by any political alliance. So I've never been proposed. This is why I've taken that path. And it has helped us as UPPZ to remain focused. And so at the end of the day, we have a future. And don't forget, we have 2031. Why I refused politics of vengeance? Because I can tell you today that the same ECZ chairperson the witnesses, there were 124 witnesses. They'll ask the witness, do you want money? No. You brought this man to court. You said you paid for the land. Any apology? So nobody from any alliances who even have the right to talk about me because they didn't want me. I'm not a factor. So the issue here comes, Mr. Chanda, what do you do with the support that we have? And I want to thank our UPPZ leaders, the head of elections, Madam Zaliwe Banda, our SG, and all the leaders. They've led campaigns in this country like no man's business. And these are leaders I have raised. There is no one we poached from any political party. The last by-election, through the team that we have as UPPZ, we gave the ruling party the run for their money. They came out with 46% in Serenje. UPPZ got 36% of the votes, and the alliance came up with the 13%. So these are our children, so we don't have to worry about them. So they got 13%. We got 36%. And UPND got 47%. And that was in the stronghold of UPND. And this is what people have never looked at us. We had a by-election in Nkhonjera, and many of you know Nkhonjera was heavily funded with CDF under Honorable Sunday Chanda. We went with my team. It's a young team, unknown team, but it can do wonders. Action is still there. There are no evidences that they've repented. And so what we are saying is, we have a responsibility as a political party. And I've sat down with my leaders. I've explained to them that we have an agenda. And we need to look at where do we take our support. And now, let's try and talk about the current, our ruling party. I spoke about how dangerous 2021 to 2026 was for anybody to be a president. I did speak about this on the media. This was the most difficult period for anybody to be a president. And some of you may not be aware. This is why sometimes you need to be informed when you are in the political arena. Don't just move by the wind. Now, 2021 to 2025, let me tell you how dangerous this period has been, or it was meant to be. In 2022, that was after the elections, there was a euro bond of $750 million that was to be paid on 20th of September 2022. That was 1 year after the elections. So whoever was going to be the president should have known that 2022, Tinangongole Zolipira, and the ones who took the money, we don't know what they used the money for. And that was the previous government. They borrowed $750 million, and the reason they gave where they borrowed the money, they wanted to revamp Zambia Railways. Is Zambia Railways revamped? No. The money was gone. So now, that money was to be paid at once. In economics, we call it a bullet payment. Now, there was a challenge there. Interest was not paid in 10 years. Then the money plus the interest was not paid. So when UPND took over, already they took over problems. They had this payment to make. Now, that was on the 20th of September, 2022. Now, on the same date, 20th of September, 2024, there was another amount of money that PF borrowed that needed to be paid. So 2 euro bonds, bullet payments, needed to be paid, used by other people to be paid by another person. That's wickedness. Show any interest in me, have analyzed all of them. And because of the agenda that we have decided, and I've informed my team that, look, this is what we are going to do. We have the UPND government. They ruled for 5 years. Yes, mistakes can be made. There is no government that has never made a mistake in this country. Not at all. There could have been mistakes here and there, which can be corrected. You cannot correct a mistake when you are dead. You correct your mistakes when you are still alive and you are given an opportunity. This is why those who have ruled us before, they can't correct their mistakes. We ride on their mistakes because they were not given an opportunity to correct those mistakes. And we are saying, President Hakainde Hichilema has led us for 5 years with his UPND. And we have looked at some of the things that have been achieved. It's not been an easy task for him. Yes, not everybody would love him. We point at some of the things, no, they did this, they put this one in prison, they did this, others in exile. Yes, those things could be there. But we need to look at the major items. There have been some things that they've tried. And we are saying some of those mistakes that could have been made under these 5 years are things that can be corrected. And I want to inform you that we have had an opportunity to meet the two of us to discuss. And what shocked me was that the president, yes, if you view him from far, you have a different attitude. But from what we discussed, I could see that he is someone, if he is surrounded by correct people with a correct agenda, he can be a different. And we are saying as UPPZ.
Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations at 1. My name is Seidlitz Nkhonjera. I'll be with you this afternoon on Conversations at 1. Now, think back to the time in history when it was campaign time and it was Kenneth Kaunda, or maybe during the Rupia Banda era or the Edgar Lungu era. When you look back then, even trees were dressed in campaign material. The tenges and t-shirts and everything was all over. There was so much money as well being distributed on the streets. because it was election time. The air was thick with music, cash, and it was moving the streets. There was so much that was going on during those elections. Admittedly, the tension was often palpable, but look around today. We are right in the thick of things. We are in 2026. The campaign period is active, and the streets are somewhat quiet. Depending on who you ask, this silence means two entirely different things. The critics are calling this the most boring campaign season in Zambia's history. They argue that that a suffocating grip of freedom of expression has silenced, dissent, and that the dry liquidity in the economy has meant that there will be no money in circulation to grease the wheels of these, election campaigns. But there is another side to the story. The UPND administration and its supporters argue that this isn't boredom, this is peace. They say the silence is a direct result of key political reforms and that that have successfully stripped violence out of our streets and out of the elections. No cadres terrorizing markets, no blood on the streets, just a sober, peaceful democratic process. So what is the truth? I ask. Have we successfully civilized Zambian politics, or are we accidentally draining the life out of Zambia's politics? My name is Seidlitz Nkhonjera again, and I'm joined by Mabvuto Piri. Others refer to him as Mzee Mabvuto Piri. Others call him Mwanta Mukulumbi or Wankulumbi Mzee Mabvuto Piri. Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations at One.
It's always a pleasure to be back on the show. Good afternoon.
All right. I'll take you back before we get to look at today's topic. We're just from playing a video of UPPZ President Charles Chanda that has joined the UPND Alliance after announcing via a press briefing that he held earlier on today. There was a press briefing as well held yesterday where another person that was Pastor Peter Chanda of the NCP that joined the UPND Alliance, and the day before we saw Dr. Xavier Chishimba as well joining the UPND Alliance. The UPND has not been the only political party receiving people, because the Pamosi Alliance, Pamosi Tonse Alliance, have also received people. Just yesterday they received Kasonde Mwenda and another political party. Let's start from there. What do you make of these commitments, especially from today's latest development? Because we did analyze what transpired yesterday.
Obviously, this is what in football they call the window period in terms of buying players and other players joining different teams. And it's exciting because it's part of the democratic right for those that intend to where exactly they could be able to relate with in terms of their personal, party and organizational aspirations. And we've seen in the last 2 days that there have been a number of news conferences with the other one scheduled for 14 hours by President Mao Sampa. So you can tell that it is that season where people have to consolidate their number to be able to attract other members of different political parties in terms of ensuring that they join them. And we are here to see more of this said.
And now let's move to today's topic quickly as we get to understand this year, 2026, is an election year, and we're already in campaign season. People are saying these elections, these campaigns are boring. What is your overall assessment, especially that you've covered elections for several, times?
I think just on face value, I would say that there's some sort of a psychological or transitional shift in terms of what we are seeing in our politics, because like you indicated in your preamble, that previously during this period we would see a lot of cadres, and when you talk about a lot of cadres, what you would see is that it was not a matter of engagement. It was a matter of showing how powerful you are as members of a political party. And you remember how people would sit in windows, on top of cars, to be able to demonstrate their allegiance to a political party. And over time, I think this is coming to an end, because immediately UPND took charge of power in 2021. What we said was that the president made it clear that there will be no cadreism in strategic institutions like markets, like bus stations, and clearly so. Because of this, we've seen some sort of tranquility in terms of the operations of these institutions, and this was a call among many Zambians that these places should be depoliticized. And the president, throughout his tenure of office, did indicate that he had not wanted even his members of the party going to the market to disturb the marketeers, but to leave them and work within these structures so that they can be able to make ends meet and be able to feed their families. So I think as a result of policy pronouncement for me, which were also followed through by certain laws that we saw previously, and suffice to say, said also, I think it's this period that we've seen in the last 5 years. Previously, you would be all over insulting other people, but now, if you look at the swift and the agency in terms of, for instance, the cybersecurity law, if today I insulted you, immediately state apparatus will move upon me, and it's difficult for me to be able to be off the cuff. So people are very careful in terms of what they are saying. To say that it's boring, no, but for me I think there's just some sort of a psychological shift. And when I was coming, I was thinking maybe it was those kids of ours that now we've employed, in terms of the doctors, the teachers that had taken up these responsibilities in political parties. But the fact that during the last 5 years they were employed, there's nobody now to take up the charge. And also people have learned that you and me said we can differ physically, but by the end of the day, we've seen flashes of pictures of political party leaders hugging, drinking coffee together. So there's this realization that people are beginning to believe that politics is actually not a dirty game, but you need to be a bit more intellect to be able to engage. And this is what we are seeing.
When you look back, Mabvuto, at elections that have been held in the past, campaigns rather, when we start with the nostalgia, you see people, then would see so much being done in terms of papers, books, shoes, so many things, regalia, trees being branded. There was so much that was being done to not only to show up that people are on the street, but to sort of paint a picture in form of graphic displays. There's not been yet that much, unless we still have 2 months before the election. So
I think also what might have added to that euphoria was the fact that I think twice, for me personally, in terms of experience, that must have been 2014 when President Sata died, and then we saw it in 2008 when President Manawasa died. I think President Rupia Banda put up one of the most expensive and extravagant campaign. That could be also said when President Sata died. I think partly what we saw during that period was a bit of desperation, because this too was literally a transition of presidents. But if you look at President Hichilema, I think he served his 5-year term, and within these 5-year terms, there have been parameters that is put in place to be able to ensure that there's peace during by-election. I think said this is not just happening at general election. Let's admit that in the last 5 years, most of the by-elections have equally been boring. We've not heard of the violence, we've not heard of the fighting. Sometimes we've even wondered, is it true there's a by-election? But previously what we would hear is that there is a by-election. The entire Lusaka, the entire state machinery will be moved to a particular location for people to campaign. And because you've shipped or transported people from Lusaka to a rural part of Zambia, what we saw was a lot of violence. But because maybe the ruling party was not too sure of its prospect in terms of retaining power, and we saw a lot of these things. But when President Hichilema took over, I think what we've seen is that local structures have been allowed to be able to amplify their strength in terms of campaigning for their candidate. And for 5 years, and clearly said this was way ahead. We saw it in the by-elections. And for me, I think there's nothing unique. It's just that we are now shifting to the real issues. Previously, it could be a show of muscle in terms of political physicality among its cadres. You remember we had a lot of commandos, but over the years, in the last 5 years, they've disappeared. People wanted to show how much the money they had as a political party. We've spoken endlessly about the issue of Tantameni, but these things over the last 5 years have not been there. So for me, I think if you look at where we're coming from in the last 5 years, this is not surprising.
Mabvuto, the government side would argue that the vibrancy of the past was deeply toxic,
yes,
and it was fueled by cadreism, intimidation, and extortion. Now, isn't this current quietness exactly what we, a lot of people would say we want a change in what the Zambian, political scenario or situation is looking like? We don't want to see blood. We don't want to see people's businesses being closed down. This is what a lot of Zambians, were calling for. But then, where are these calls that this is boring? Do Zambians want, a repeat of such?
Obviously, if you look at the entire ecosystem, for me, what is missing, or what the conversation out there is, where is the money in the elections? So some of the people are saying, you've given us a piece. The cadres are not in the markets. But where's the money? I think I was sitting here, it must have been 2 days ago, when Mr. Banda called and says, Mabvuto, I was in a bomb at Pasegondalama. So it's a question of financial resources. But said also the question, the responsibility we have, government and the opposition political parties have, is one. Firstly, Zambians should not learn or be encouraged to be able to sell their voters card. They should be able to protect it. At the moment, what should be the discussion? It should be some level of intellectual discussion or discourse, where we say, what kind of value will the elections create in its aftermath? Yesterday, we've seen previously, people get the money and disappear. For me, what is important is that there's peace. When there's peace, it's up to us as citizens to begin to create value for ourselves. And that's what this government has done. Thirdly, I think in the last 5 years, said, what we've seen is a disintegration of the opposition. At one point, 4 years, 8 months into the, almost 4 years, 6 months or 5 months into the administration of President Hakainde Hichilema, what we've seen said is that there was no strong opposition. And clearly, if you can get on the ground, right now as we speak, people don't even know which political parties they will vote for. We've got an opposition, for instance, with a president. There's one instance of the political party with a president from another party and the vice president from another party. Both parties have fielded candidates. And I think I must have seen a video of Kitwe where actually at that rally, the cadres for the president of that political party were speaking ill of the running mate of that particular president. So the only visible candidate so far on the ballot, and then you can fault me, said, if you like, is President Hichilema across the country. Some of these people, there've even been reports that in a number of areas, they've not found candidates. So it's very difficult for them to campaign. And I don't think, even if there was the euphoria that we've seen previously, it will not be the same. If you look consistently, I think from 2008 to where we are, you realize there was consistently a visible opposition that took part in these by-elections and in general elections. Right now, as we speak, many of them are like latecomers. They are just appearing now to be able to consolidate themselves and say, we are going to take over. In terms of the blueprint, what is there in terms of their manifesto, of what they are offering to the people? Clearly, I can tell you, said, and this could be the reason why people are complaining, is because there's nothing you can gauge the opposition with a governing party with. Because that's why people are asking, what is your manifesto? What do you intend to do for us? So there are a lot of these things, and we need to be able to interrogate ourselves in terms of ensuring that we understand what political parties are doing. And the other thing I told you was this government said that your integrity as an individual is protected. You and me having a difference in opinion should not end at you demeaning me. They went ahead and pushing laws, statutes that protect the interest of other political players. And that's why we've seen, I think it was you telling me that actually there was a plea by an opposition political party saying those who are abroad now, they should be allowed to come back and come and do the politics here because people are free to be able to do so.
There is also some voices that have been saying that the reason why there is silence is because the current administration has weaponized the law. They have weaponized the Cyber Crimes and Cybersecurity Act, and that people are failing to speak out because they're afraid that whatever they're going to say may land them in jail. Maybe that is what has contributed to
and you see, it's because previously our politics was littered in insults, innuendos, undermining each other. But obviously the state needed to find a way of protecting your interest, of protecting my interest. So you can't fault at them. Because one thing said, I should not be able to come to a media institution and accuse you of something that I can justify. And this is not unique. You and me, we've produced programs even in the previous governments where those who insulted others ended up in the court of law. There were plenty of cases that personally appeared in the court of law as a state witness to be able to stand and say, oh, that production of the program was based on this and just fight. Others were left to scot-free. Others were convicted. So literally when you talk about the law, I think for me, the interest in terms of formulating or coming up with such statutes was to be able to protect each other by saying Said and Mabvuto can debate without getting personal, can differ on political party ideologies without offending each other. That's what we had not seen previously, because mostly a person will just walk up and say, "Vase didwa humanizer, vase didwa ndalama." But when you bring them to account, people were failing. And you remember when these statutes were being implemented, people were saying, no, it's political language. But why? So you meant that in political language, people should be able to undermine each other? People should be able to insult each other? We just needed to have some sort of sanity and integrity in terms of how politics was being done in this country by ensuring that others were protected. And one of the most abused office previously was the president's. So people needed to find a way to be able to protect, because you can be in the same race with a presidential candidate who is a president. Instead of going for policy to policy, people would choose to go for his character. Sometimes People even went as far as attacking a wife of a presidential candidate who is not even in the race, the children of a presidential candidate who is not even in the race. But obviously the statutes have found their way to be able to protect not only the candidate, their families, and those that are nearby to them, by not allowing Mabvuto to insult your supporters, by allowing Mr. Mabvuto to be able to discuss the manifesto of your political party. It was surprising today when I heard the UPP president speaking more as if he's a UPND member. Today, some of us, when we've been saying it for the last 5 years, that this government, given the difficulties, were coming from, for instance, 2018, where we were drought, and coming to 2021, 2022, September 20th, we're almost defaulting on Eurobonds. And when we said, I think President Nkhonjera has come from a difficult point of life when he took over during this last period, because he had to deal with the debt. And said it's very unique when you listen from some of the people that criticized him, and today they're jumping on a bandwagon to be able to support him. When some of us sat here and explained these things, we just sounded like we were getting Zambians.
We were calling you a Kada.
Yes, you called me Kada. But today, I hear Mr. Chanda today agreeing with me over what I've been saying for the last 5 years about this administration.
Maybe he's also just a Kada.
Obviously, but there's a realization. and for me, if that is what would have visited our politics in the last 4 years, we should have been talking about a developing country. Said we're at a stage now, the focus of our politics should be that which would deliver one, medical health closer to our people, should be that of what delivers education closer to our people. Our politics should be littered with issues. I was happy, I even heard one I think parliamentary candidate in this election, I don't know if that's in McKinney or Kanyama, was saying, Kukamu God Kuno, you guys where you're sitting, this will now be transformed into a skills development center. And that's what should be the discussion. You see, because previously the politicians had been abusing other people's children to be able to win votes. And we saw where I think before 2021, we still talk about Lawrence Banda. We still talk about how Frank Tahari was pointed a gun at for merely escorting. And these are things that littered the Zambian political space. How cadres were beaten, how women just 100 meters away from where a vice president of the country was standing, a woman is stripped naked because of opposing political views. I think we need to be able to enjoy this sanity. And for those that are in the political space, give us your manifesto. Give the people the manifesto. And convince them. Don't give them the money. Create the values with the money that you have. Put up a school. Ensure that the kids are in school. And obviously, people will give you a vote.
My final question, Mabvuto, before we get to listen to our viewers. There's been a surge in an increase in women participation.
And before you come to that question, and you can see also the shift, even with media institutions. Now political parties have embraced more social media. There's now a component of AI. Obviously, we should be crying that a bit of what is resourceful to us has been taken away, because said political parties are just sitting, creating value for themselves without and it gives us an opportunity to be able to think beyond elections, because most of the businesses, even just if you look at the printing, said the billboards are not there. So you're wondering what has happened. It's because people now have embraced innovative ways of campaigning, and some of them are campaigning. Previously said you need an entire hobby van to be able to do campaigns, but now they are not rallies, because the person who was seen as the omega and the alpha to be able to fund candidates are literally funding themselves. I think we even have a peculiar case in Mazabuka where the people just said, Kamusha and we raise the money and we want him to the ballot. And previously, I think I'd spoken about that, where I said, it should be the responsibility of the community to identify that Mabvuto Pili mwana wa Twaga Mandeo, and we feel that he can represent us well. They will look at my financial capacity. If I don't have, my mothers, my brothers, my sisters should be able to sit together. If they agree to say, oh, immediately after these elections, 15th, 16th of August, we begin to raise money for him because we want to see him into parliament in 2031. The democratic space of this country will change, because the ownership in terms of people that are being taken to parliament will no longer be with the rich or the preserve of the rich. It will be now determined by the people themselves. And I think political parties, and I'm hoping, dependent on how that petition will go, I think that case of Mazabuka might be a classical example of the kind of leadership people would want to aspire for. To say, you don't have the money, you don't understand, we are going to drag you, you are going to stand here, we've seen what you are capable of doing. And if that can be done across the country, because previously what was there is that said leadership was for sale. It was dependent on how much said has compared to what Mabvuto has. I was seeing my young sister who just graduated from university. I think that is in Mwense, 26 years old, a girl is standing and campaigning. And did you know who she's standing with? Former Minister of Education. So if more young people could be given that opportunities in terms of determining their destiny, I can assure. And you ask yourself, and this obviously is her first career job in politics. She has not worked anywhere. She has just graduated from the university. The party has given us an opportunity to be able to stand. I know you're going to the question of women. If that could be done at all levels, where communities begin to demand responsibility to put their own leaders are to be able to meet us, because you will not run away. You'll be able to be reminded that, basedi, na mwibuja kuno toilet takuti. Ifu ndalama ishi, tuliba maketia, tuwalisonkele, tuwamibikapo, mwaya kui. Next, they'll be able to identify. So for me, I think in terms of this psychological shift, is that people are beginning to realize never to sell their voters cards. People are beginning to realize and to know what kind of leaders best befit their communities. Unlike previously, where people would come to us with money, queue us up, they give us the money, immediately they get power, they leave, they go for good, they use our children who will fight tomorrow when opportunities come. Our kids don't have these opportunities. But now people are realizing in terms of what kind of leadership they want.
All right, I won't even get to that question because our time is now limited. But let's get to our inbox and see what you are saying on today's topic. Our question today is, are the election campaigns really boring this year as compared to other years? And this has been said because that is what chatter has been about on social media, in various circles when you are having conversations. It's been, this election feels a little different, right? So said, it is annoying to hear some people saying HH must be replaced by Mundubile. Surely, how can a normal Zambian miss brutal regime where only thugs had millions of kwacha in circulation, only diehard PF left over will vote for BM8, as HH will sweep in all districts, Kayombo in Lukulu. All right, thank you, Mr. Kayombo, for that message. Let's get to another contribution this afternoon. Good afternoon, team. God's time is the best. RKC in Serenja. Thank you, RKC, for that contribution. Good morning, Crown TV panel. The case of Mr. Nkombo and other independent candidates may cause UPND to lose more votes if not well handled. SC. Thank you, SC, for your contribution. All right, let's get to some more on the list. Yes, the campaigns this year is boring. Banda Kings from Lukulu, land of plenty. Of boring campaigns. For those used to noisy, drunken campaigns, have every reason to say so. The atmosphere may change as we move closer. Could it be an effect of HH decree? Any violence, you're on your own. I'm enjoying the quiet. My grandchild feels safe to school. All right, play visit. I'm MK Chitambo of Kabwe. Thank you, MK Chitambo of Kabwe, for that message. Yes, the campaigns this year is boring. All right, this is Mr. Banda. We've read that message already. HH is an economic guru who has fingers on important global economic buttons. Katongo from Lusaka. Thank you, Katongo. All right, this one says, good afternoon. The 2026 election campaigns are not boring in the sense that some of us, we've already decided to vote for HH. Kuya Neilelonga. My question is, what is the opposition going to do, which the UPND has failed to do in the past 5 years? The nationalist, Henry Chola from Bulangidilo, Kwacha in Kitwe. Thank you very much for that message. HH, who is not on salary, shall never waste to dress trees. Our money is for free education, CDF, timely salaries, and so on. HH for life. Kayombo in Lukulu. All right, Seid Mabvuto. Good afternoon. I've lived through all the administrations, and truth be told, there is no wind of change. MS from Ndola. All right, thank you, MS, for that contribution. Good afternoon, Seidlitz Mabvuto and the Conversations at One family. Watching you from the Great Britain in London. Patience Musompa. Thank you very much, Patience, for that message. We're glad that you are following this conversation. Good afternoon, Nkhonjera and Mzee. Campaigns are not boring. Those saying it's boring are those who used to be given free bricks of money. It's a mentality problem. Some people are still in PF mode of vote buying, not in HH regime. SS from Iteji. Thank you very much, SS, for that message. Good afternoon, Mabvuto and Mr. Nkhonjera. Good afternoon. The opposition have no message to tell the Zambian people. It's not about being boring, but the message political parties are giving out. I do agree with you, Mabvuto. Obupuba, walipwa. We are now enjoying peace and tranquility. AM from Kafue. All right, thank you, AM, for that.
But said also, you know what is surprising me? I know you go back to the message. You're telling me these elections are boring when they were the most competed for. Yeah, we've seen in some areas. Why was there a problem in UPND? Anyone wanted to stand. Everybody wanted to be adopted. Then you tell me they were boring. At what level did they graduate into this boredom?
In the boredom.
Yeah. Is it not just last week that the whole country was littered in a discussion over adoptions? Because even some of these, I think you see why some people speculating that the elections are boring. I think they didn't get the good candidates. Whether you like it or not, UPND had good candidates. And you can tell. But let's go, for instance, to Kalulushi. Previously, it would always be Rashida and the Kampamba Mlenga. Now there was the delimitation. I think for me, delimitation itself sealed this thing off. Because where there was competition in some constituencies now, where you needed to spend a bit more in terms of building your own image, it's not there. Because Rashida is standing in another constituency. Kampamba is standing in another constituency. Kafue, now you look, Mwaliteta is another constituency. That other woman is in another constituency. Here where we're sitting, it was one constituency. Thomas is standing in another constituency. There is Roma constituency on the middle. Matero, there is Lima constituency. There is Matero constituency in the middle. But some of these constituencies used to be heavily competitive.
And Trevor Mwinde has already won, Shoma.
We're talking about 6-7 candidates who have already won. So, at what level are people claiming that the elections are boring when they were heavily competed for? Even before the election, we saw a lot of people doing projects.
Let's listen to Mr. Banda from Sinda. Maybe he can shed more light. Abanda, mlibwanji?
Nilibino, Bwana Nkhonjera, maoneka bwino maringi.
Tayami kila.
Itokoza pili mlibwanji.
Bwira bale banga, kayo walibwanji, tukungotata pakolo pakolo.
Bwino, pili, mlizumu tata, pili muleta ngako ndewa mchipana, pili. Ni kwaji kujate mpato kapanda na bandana kani nkombo, apili. Apili. Apili, tia nitizuona vindu vina, ngati musokoleza. Kulani pali wandu wachita apologize, nikondo kamba po deire na pili. Muzi la pili, wandu, niwapumu kwa ngako. Zoma zichitika mchipana. Amera pi. So tia ntione sese mchipanu tikoze time ikaliko tia tikoze chipani makadas wauze nivochita usagulira muwa kutazipanda banda vantu yayo ikwaziro kwa Nkhonjera sari free akakamboti ndine wa independent muwapande apande kuchipani chanu so apiri ikale wa Zambia one nation mbale wanga ziko kwambiri sewanzani bwe.
Alright, thank you very much.
And you know one thing I like about that conversation, before I forget, the shift has moved.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Banda, how are you?
Fine, and you? Mr. Piri, afternoon.
Good afternoon, my brother, how are you?
Okay, me what I want is let's help the head of state and the European government to continue governing. In the sense that we should only speak the truth and tell the nation the truth. Because if I follow your analysis, my brother, you are not saying the truth there. I'm telling you the truth. Because what is obtaining on the ground here is different from what you are explaining yourself. Let me take the best here with you. What is that what you are insisting on to say? No, there's no opposition. Campaigns are boring because they are not giving money. This government has a fiscal discipline. Those are not cases, sir. To tell the truth, after August 13th, he will give me. This is what I was saying this morning. Let's help these people air the truth so that they concentrate on areas where they didn't do well.
What is the situation on the ground in your area, Mr.
It's
Banda?
Not good. It's not good. Let me
with regards campaigns.
One, here the industry we depend on is the agriculture.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
The topic we are discussing is with regards campaigns and the question that people are saying that campaigns are boring.
That's why I'm going. Now, just allow me to explain. The campaigns, why are campaigns boring, 2026 boring or not? Yeah, that's the topic. So, I'm following his analysis. Campaigns are not really boring. The people are decided, people are thinking different things on ground. Be very clear there. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Banda. So Mr. Banda is saying the campaigns are not boring per se, but it's because people already decided on who they are going to vote for. So
even in areas where UPND is already winning.
At least he's talking about his area.
You should have asked, where are you coming from? Where are you going from?
Dazi.
Oh, so there people are decided.
Yes.
Where is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Hello. Good. My friends, how are you?
Very fine, thank you. How are you, Mr. Nkumbwa?
Very good. Indeed, it's not boring. For those who have nothing to give to the people, they fear their own shadows. Because as far as I know, people are free to campaign, to engage people, provided
you have structures.
All right.
But the problem of seeing people have no structures on the ground. Those are saying, we're winning the Munduviles and these guys. Who is Munduvile first of all? These were people who were advisors to President Lungu as his lawyers. Makebi Zulu equally was a lawyer. Meaning, whatever we are blaming President Lungu for, you can't detach Munduvile and Makebi Zulu from such. In fact, they could have made President Lungu the worst one. Because I recall President Lungu, I believe it was a good man. At some point, he admitted the hooliganism in the PF that the others were denying when he was the Home Affairs Minister. When other people were allowed to, the PF guys could demonstrate at will, the opposition were being stopped. And in the parliament, when he issued a ministerial statement, he accepted that indeed things were not okay. Okay? Now, how come Mr. Lungu changed? It's like these people, the so-called PF lawyers, are the ones who destroyed him. Now he's painted black because of Makebi Zulu, because of Munduvile, who was even once a government chief whip. So to say once they form government, there'll be a different people. How? If they could not help President Lungu be the best president, how can they be the best themselves? Were they doing it deliberately so that people rose against President Lungu, so at the end they gain mileage themselves? That's why as Zambians we don't care about those people. If you're once in the government, you did good to the good thing, you come to us to tell them, no, this time I'm different. We shall say, which school did you go to change you?
Mr. Nkumbwa,
did Jesus Christ change you?
In your area, Mr. Nkumbwa, are elections campaigns boring? And do you think the suggestion by other people that the campaigns are boring because people are afraid to speak out, or because people have already made their minds, is something that you can agree with?
Okay, here, my environment here, I tell you, even the candidates for so-called Munduvile party are not there. Meaning people have already settled on one political party. This is UPN and their president. So that boring is to those who wanted perhaps violence as a way of getting sympathy from the people. But for those who have already decided, it's not boring. I wish you could even vote next week, because you have already decided. So it's not boring, my friend. People have already decided. No wonder these people, at one time, is it Zumani Bada claimed that Zumani Zimba, that it have fielded in the 220 consoles. Now the question is where? Because in about 16, it's an opposite. Is it 16, 15? An opposite. How many seats do we have? Consensus 226. 2015 already is an opposite. Is 220 claim correct? And in fact, in Nicaragua there is nothing. In Iliua there is nothing. In whatever, almost in consensus there is nothing. There are no candidates belonging to Tonse. They are not there. So it's not boring. People have already decided. President Cheche will carry on. If possible, should have been allowed to go beyond 2031, so that we can fix everything.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
live in the country better than he found it. I thank you.
All right, thank you for your contribution. Hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you.
All right, what is your name and where are you calling us from?
Okay, this is Mbasela calling you from Solwezi.
Mr. Mbasela, we're grateful for your call. Please go ahead.
Yes, are the 2026 election campaigns boring? That's the question. Yeah, the answer is yes, they are boring. And here is why.
All right.
The reason why the election campaigns are boring is because the opposition, they've got no message. What alternative message do they have on free education? What alternative message do they have on a number of things that the European government has achieved, such as the bumper harvest that has been recorded, record bumper harvest that has been recorded since UPND came in power. So the issue is that they've got no message. Previously, we could have opposition that will give alternatives, opposition that will give a good run to the ruling party, but that's a different case today. It's a different case because they've got nothing to offer. It can only be interesting. That is my line of thought. If if you have people that have got alternatives to whatever the ruling party is doing, but at the moment, there is no message from the opposition. That makes the 2026 election campaign boring, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mbasela from Solwezi, for that call, and thank you to everyone that has managed to get through. I know there's so many people that have been trying to call, and so many messages as well that we have not read. Apologies, the time could not allow, but we will go through the line to just see how many of those contributions and what you're saying. But generally, this is Mabvuto, the feedback from viewers.
Yeah, interesting submission, but like I said, the elections are not boring, and one I think highlight that came from Mr. Nkumbwa. It's only that certain political parties maybe don't have the structures to be able to engage. If they did, they will find the joy and the fun, the fanfare, the drama, the intrigue. But as long as you don't have the structures on the ground, it is going to be very difficult. And like the last callers indicated, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think President Hichilema has done his best to ensure there's sanity in terms of our political dispensation, there's clarity to policies. And I remember at many forums, his desire has always been to be able to protect the lives of others. I think based on the record, I think after President Kaunda, his party lost a number of people due to political violence. And we still mourn Saman Sama today, Joseph Kabungo, we still mourn them. And this was at the instigation of political violence. But if you look at the last 5 years, I think we've not seen cases like that. The template was clear from the beginning, and the president indicated and made it very clear, if you engage in violence, I will never endorse that. You'll be on your own. And I think overall the structures of his party have lived with that. And mostly, even when you're with them, they always tell you, our president, our masters told us that we shall not engage in political violence. On the economic front, I think but there was the issue of debt restructuring. President Hichilema came in, 7 years of difficulties within the last of the PF, tried to negotiate this, they couldn't get through. In the last 5 years, this is something that President Hichilema. So, like one caller also noted, I think this could also be one of the reasons why the politics is boring, because there is no template on the other side. We are merely looking at one template and saying, but what's the alternative to this? What's the alternative to this? So even if you are to have an endless conversation, we're not having it, because previously our people told with emotions of the voters, but President Hichilema, I think for me, attended to the emotion of the voters, the young people in the Copper Belt, across the country. My relative Mr. Banda was talking about the agriculture sector. As we speak, we're just talking about 4.9 million metric tons of maize. Why was it so? It's because of the good policies I think this government put in place. At one time, we had the challenge of load shedding. I think the government stepped in. There were a lot of innovations. You remember the state also had removed some taxes in terms of the importation of solar equipment, and these are some of the incentives that Zambians got. So I think the terrain is just difficult for the opposition.
Mabvuto, finally, the Zambian voter has been known to be the one, like you're saying, that votes based on emotion, but also votes based on the pocket. This has been the narrative of Zambian elections for quite a while now. The person that bridges the gap between, that pocket gap and also whether economically the Zambians are feeling secure, most likely is the one.
I think what Zambians have done in the last 5 years, with what I've seen myself, they've built their own capacity. There was a pledge that weekends will be lit. Personally, I've seen them. Over the weekend, I was with a colleague of mine. We were literally looking for where we could settle to be able to watch football. So if this has happened in the last 4 years, and previously people would throw money around, and even when we intended to sit in the VIP, there was no space. So for me, if you talk about money, I think Zambians have become a bit more disciplined in terms of their expenditure. because they know there's no anywhere easy out to be able to have that same amount of money that previously you would get. You remember, said we're coming from a situation where we could see people sleeping on beds that were literally, the mattress was money. We were coming from a background where $100 or $200 or $500 would be put on a brazier. I don't think that's the same, because Zambia now have become a bit more disciplined financially in terms of, because they know that if I misuse this money, it will be very difficult for me to be able to get through. And I think also Zambians have become more hardworking, and I can justify this. If you talk about 5 million metric tons of maize in terms of a bumper harvest 2026-2027 season, I think that's a plus for you. It speaks to something. Discipline, and once there's that discipline, all of us will be able to work together. And remember, the president kept emphasizing, let's work. Once we work, then we'll create value for ourselves.
Fascinating insights from Mabvuto Piri. And now, whether you think that these campaigns are beautifully peaceful or painfully boring, the one thing remains: politicians are still out there with the same passion, trying to get your vote. Analyze their manifestos, analyze their messages as you make that sound decision. This has been Conversations at 1. We are back tomorrow, same time. And thank you very much to you. Thank you to you as well, Mr. Piri.
Go and see the people. The people are campaigning. I've just seen one of the candidates in Mandevu walking from one plot to another, creating fun out of the entire campaign period. So if you are sitting in the studio, you and me, without realizing that the people are campaigning, will not see them campaigning. But once you have the structure, you will see, and you'll be able to utilize your members to see that they're working. So there's no boring campaign. It's only that there's a psychological shift now. We're transitioning to something a bit more progressive in terms of how we conduct our campaigns. And you know, one thing that makes me happy, we're seeing a lot of graduations these days. Zambians are getting more educated and are engaging themselves more intellectually than ever before. 1964, yari mposa mabwe. The only mposa buku manje kwa isanomba posa buku. Every week people are graduating.
This is Crown Television. Continue watching. Good afternoon.